Hey, welcome everyone. Uncovering uncovering growth in life's unscripted moments means learning to find strength, resilience, and personal development in situations where there is no clear plan or structure. Often we experience the most growth when life doesn't go as expected, whether it's a sudden change, a challenge, or an opportunity that comes out of nowhere. In these moments of uncertainty, we're pushed to adapt, reflect, and sometimes rethink our approach to life. By stepping outside of the rigid frameworks we often set for ourselves, we become more open to new possibilities and deeper insights. It's about embracing the unpredictability of life, using it as a catalyst for self discovery and transformation rather than resisting it. Welcome to another episode of The Other Side of Addiction. I am your host, Al Richards, and today, with our guest, Rachel Whalen, we are going to be talking about life after sexual assault, pushing through shame, and learning to feel like you again. And I am really excited to talk about this topic because it's definitely something that needs to be discussed. So, Rachel, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day. I know you're a busy woman to be on the show today. So I just really appreciate you so much.
Yeah, of course. I'm so excited to be here. I was so excited when you approached me with this idea. And yeah, I think it's a topic that doesn't get talked about enough, especially in Utah. And I'm excited to bring light to it. And I feel like my experience has been when the doors open to conversation, it allows vulnerability and it allows others to share stories that are the same. So if me sharing my story helps one person feel more confident to share their story, my job is done and I feel good.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head. You know, when you said if it's just one person, because I've said this in many other shows, you know, that ripple effect goes way beyond what you and I ever really see. And I mean,
Yep.
I'm over here with goosebumps like crazy because I've seen it happen in the 4 years that I've been doing this show, where someone will come up and approach me and go, "Hey, you're the guy that does the podcast. And I remember this guest, and this is what the guest said. And it freaking changed my life." And I'm
Oh
like,
wow.
that is so cool to hear. You know, and it's and
Yeah.
it's not, it's not, I mean, I guess it is really the show because it's given someone that platform to use their
Yep.
voice and to be vulnerable, to give somebody else that strength that they're needing to step up to the plate and hit the damn ball out of the park.
No, I completely agree. And I think the show is such a great conduit for that. I think inviting people to share vulnerability on a platform like this really can make a huge difference. It's a real door opener for sure. I've had experiences where when I was sexually assaulted, I it's such a shameful thing, like I talked about. Like when I approached you with the idea of it really puts a cloud over you, and it is such an isolating experience, even if you know full well in your cognitive brain there are millions of other people that have experienced something like this. The shame of that does such a great job of isolating you and making you feel lonely. And through my own experiences I've had where I had been listening to a podcast or a song or looking at a piece of art or something and connecting with some portion of that that made me feel even a hair less alone allowed me to step more and more into that connecting back with myself and feeling like not only are there others that have had this experience, I am still me at the end of the day. Others have had it. They have continued to be themselves, and I can find that path too. So I think it'll be a really good one. I'm excited.
Yeah, yeah, and good for you. I mean, seriously, good for you for wanting to step up and
Yeah,
get that out there because it's not easy to share something about our lives, right? Especially
yeah,
whether we did or whether it's something that's happened to us.
yep,
Because again, that fear of also being
yep.
shamed, that fear of being
Mhm.
judged. And you know, it's so crazy because um, I was talking with somebody yesterday who had something happen in their life, and she was telling me, she goes, "Al, I am just shocked how ignorant people can be." And she started sharing some of the stuff that was being sent to her through text, through messages on social media.
Yep,
And it's like these people don't even know what you really have gone through, but yet they're so quick to
yep,
judge like you
yep,
are the biggest piece of crap or you
yep.
caused it. And it's like, I just don't understand people. how they look at things. And
Yeah.
I'm guilty as well, right? I'm not no freaking innocent angel at all because I used to go downtown and see the unsheltered and the addicts down there and go, get your effing crap together, man. Come on. What
Right.
the hell is wrong with you?
Right.
And then I do the show and I start meeting all these freaking amazing individuals and hearing their story. Now
Yeah.
I go downtown and I go, I wonder what your story is. What
Yeah.
happened? What
Yeah.
caused this? Because something happened to put you here in this situation.
Absolutely. Yeah, it really does cause such a lens shift. My other high horse I could get on all day long is, I think, social media and the access to the internet has just opened up a platform for people to be unabashedly hateful for no reason and to perpetuate shame in such a way that it's frankly disgusting at times, but I think it's such a dual-ended sword as it is with anything in life. You can't have the good without the bad. And social media and those texts and those comments also can provide such a great sense of relief and camaraderie and community. And being able to navigate those two things at the same time while already being in such a vulnerable mindset is incredibly tough. I remember when I was first sexually assaulted. I'm stepping back into my life because you just have to keep trucking. That's the kind of thing where it's going to be, oh, and I've now been in the hospital for 6 hours getting the most invasive exam I've ever had done to me done. And oh, I have to wake up the next morning and go to work and just head back into life and pretend like nothing ever happened, essentially. And I remember stepping back into social media and having almost this grief of like, I am presenting the same. I am engaging the same, but something is fundamentally different. And I don't feel comfortable to talk about it. And that presented in real life as well, where, hell, even today, sometimes when I'm getting ready to talk about this still, I get a sense of like a tightness in my chest or like a, oh God, like I have to talk about it. But it's really having the resiliency and the braveness to push through the discomfort that I found the shame goes away. But it is getting over that hump that is so incredibly difficult and took me over 4 years to master, quote unquote. Like, yeah, I still struggle with it every day, but that is unfortunately where I found the shame to dissipate and go away is when I get through that hump.
Yeah, and it sounds to me like you've been retraining your brain, right?
Correct.
I mean, as a certified crisis and recovery coach, my training was all about the brain first approach, and it's learning how to control this instead of this controlling us. And,
Yep.
and we don't understand that we have that capability. And is it easy? You said it's not, and it definitely is not because we've been programmed this way all our life. And for you to recognize that and continue to push through and not give up, like you said, the resiliency, man, I tip my hat off to you because
Oh,
I could
thanks.
not imagine. I could say, oh, I couldn't imagine. Well, you're right. I couldn't imagine because I've not been in those shoes. I just could not fricking get how something like that could happen to another individual and what you have to put yourself through to get
Yep.
yourself to a point to where it is no longer controlling your life.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think the oddest, most twist about lesson that I've had thus far in the years after experiencing it is in the moment when it's occurring, and anybody that has had sexual assault occur to them, you know it is the most absolute lack of control I have ever felt in my life because that's what it is. Somebody is inherently taking away your control and your power and your autonomy in a situation. And I feel like I spent the years after just chasing that control. And how do I keep this narrative to me now? How can I get my little grippers in it to keep it up to me again? And I would go into therapy. I did EMDR for upwards of a year and a half, and it was a complete non-starter because my brain, I was trying so hard to control the narrative and control the way I felt and avoid giving up that autonomy at all costs to avoid feeling that lack of control again, that EMDR was a non-starter. I had to stop doing it completely and I felt so defeated. And really, the biggest lesson was the minute I started to give up the control again was when I started to find peace of mind. When I started to say, this is not something I can control. And the more I try to, the more I am deteriorating myself, trying to keep my hands on what this is and what this means about me and what this says about me. When I let that go and I started to just lean into the wave of, while I get to write the story of who I am, there are just some uncontrollables in the scheme of life and the way you go about things and what trauma means about you and how you handle things. And it really allowed me, I've been saying 2025 is the year of giving myself grace. Like it has allowed me to just give myself grace of sometimes you are going to have to let the reins go and it's not going to look pretty, but give yourself the grace and know that peace comes on the other side of letting the reins go.
You said that so flippin' well about giving up. Seriously, Rachel, giving up that control, right? How many of us do that on a daily basis where we do everything
Right.
to control our life? As a matter of fact, this was just said yesterday with someone I was speaking to. It's like, and people have heard this, I know. Life isn't happening to us, life is happening for us.
Yes.
And my version is, as crazy it may sound, things that happen to us in our life are things that help grow us and build
Yep.
us.
Yep.
However, it can also help destroy us,
Yep.
take our life over. It just depends on which direction do we go, right? Do we go left or right or
Yeah.
left? We don't know, and that's something we have to sit with ourselves, and then also uh, given up to a higher power, whatever that higher power is to
Yeah.
you, right? I
Yeah.
We all have our own thing, but to be able to say, okay, I'm done. I'm
Yeah.
done with this. Help me go in the direction I need to
Yep.
go so I can
Yep.
start feeling like I have a life again.
Yep. Absolutely. That reminds me a lot. One of my best friends, he's in AA. He's been sober for like 13 years, and when him and I will have these big long discussions, he was born and raised Catholic. He was a priest. He came out as homosexual in the last 3 or 4 years, and he just has the most incredible story. He's an incredible guy. But he'll talk with me often about like his higher power or what that looked like for him, how it helps him through the steps of AA, how he weaves it into his life. And when I was sexually assaulted, I remember I was raised in a family with no religion whatsoever. My brothers are hardcore atheists. Like my family was very, we are who we are. We don't really have a lot of religion. And I remember feeling so lost post sexual assault of what does this mean? Like, why in the love of God would this happen to somebody against their will? Like, I could not wrap my head around it. And I started to, as I explored and investigated myself and was more vulnerable and started to give up that control, I started to, in the least narcissistic way possible, identify myself as the higher power of like, I have a friend of mine will always say, there are so many chapters ahead of you and characters you're going to meet in the book of your life that you just don't even know about yet. And I like to think of myself, my higher power as being like myself, my author. I get to write the chapters, I get to write the book. There's characters I don't know about yet, there's storylines I don't know about yet. And how selfish of me to deny myself of having those experiences or end that book short when there's a whole story ahead of me that I don't know about. And I think that a quote unquote higher power can really make a huge difference, whether it's a higher power or just having some kind of belief in vulnerability. Because to me, that's majorly what I believe in of that higher power mindset is it is having a belief and a trust in vulnerability, good and bad, whatever that looks like for you. And if you can commit to that, I think it really opens up a lot of doors for you.
Yeah, I would have to concur with what you're saying on that because again, it's so crazy how this conversation is going because I seriously spoke with someone, I won't say who it was. We just spoke about this yesterday in a
Yeah.
deep conversation about, I was saying that my version of this is our lives are
Yep.
perfectly script. However, we've heard people say, we're the captain of our own ship. We decide where
Mhm.
where we steer it, and it's true. I mean, really, it is. However, again, we can still steer it into a storm very easily, right?
Correct.
If we're not paying attention, and
Yeah.
and sometimes people will come into our lives to help divert us. It's like, hey, you're
Yep.
heading into a storm, and there's something maybe that they just say or however it may be, kind of push us to go into a different direction. And then also that
Yeah.
opens up our mind a little bit more, going, maybe I need to look at things differently. Maybe I need to think
Yeah.
about this a little more. And this is what I love about doing the show, because having people like yourself and so many others, man, it has helped my life. It has really helped direct my boat and steer my boat in a lot of different
Yeah.
directions because I hear what they're saying and I resonate with it so much. I'm going, I got to look at this in a different way because I've been
Yeah.
looking at it really in a wrong way,
Yeah.
not really putting much mind to it. But now I really got to put some thought into this because
Yeah.
I like what they've said because they've lived it, they've done it. So if
Yeah.
this is working for them, there's a chance it'll work for me.
Yeah, I love that. I'm a little envious. I'm like, you just get to talk to cool people all day and get like a modge podge of really sound wisdom and pearls and nuggets of advice, and you get to apply them. I'm a little envious. That does sound
Yeah.
pretty kick-ass. I
Well,
love
I
that.
have to say,
I think that the biggest thing for me that I started to learn post sexual assault as well is, and it's so frustrating and it's so unfair, and anybody who has been sexually assaulted can resonate with how unfair it is, but life is coming from you and not at you. And that is a tough one to cope with because you are put in a situation you did not choose. So that inherently, that phrase in your brain is going to sound wrong. It's going to sound like, well, this didn't come from me. This situation I was put in did not come from me. And that can be correct. I think the essence of it for me is this unfair thing happened to you. That is correct. Your autonomy was completely taken from you in the most heinous way possible. You, the best path in my brain you can take from that moment on is life is coming from you, and you need to be making active choices every single day to gain that autonomy, to have that vulnerability, and to know you don't need to continue to feel like you are at the whim of everyone around you. It was shitty in the moment. I hear you, and it's tough to not feel like, oh my God, I think life can just like come at me in this very heinous way. But I really truly believe that life in those instances thereafter comes from you, and you can make those choices to build yourself up, to have a really strong foundation for yourself, to use that to explore and learn what your value system is. Use that to learn and explore the relationships in your life. Who was really there for you? Who listened to you? Did you unexpectedly have somebody come through that you didn't know was going to be an important person in your life? I think it's just like everything else in life, where sometimes when something bad happens, it can really open your eyes up to a lot of incredible things, or maybe it's going to get tougher for a little while, but I just that's probably my biggest is just really like reclaiming that autonomy and reclaiming that vulnerability.
yeah. Yeah, finally dropping the shovel and stop playing the victim all the time,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Because we're so good at that as human beings
Yep.
of taking even some of the smallest things and turning it into something so big, just
Yeah.
so we can use that as, I'll just put it bluntly, use that as our excuse, as this
Yep.
is why I am the way that I am
Yep.
because of this.
Yep.
In my training, our coaches, uh, they're out of Canada, and they mailed every single person that was in that class a book,
Mhm.
and it's The Power of Ted.
Yeah.
Power of Ted talks about the Cartman's Triangle, and when I read that book, it's in a story form, but it teaches you something very, very well about playing the victim, the oh my gosh, I'm going brain dead. Play the victim, the rescuer, And then there's one more. I can't think of it right now. And when I read that, I went, oh my hell. I have been in this bottom triangle my whole freaking life and not
Yeah.
realizing it.
Yes.
And I've been using all this bad stuff that's happened to me in my life to go, oh, poor Al. This is why I have an anger issue. This is why
Hmm.
I get so triggered here, and this is why this has happened, and this is why my finances are the way they are, and this is why this. And then
Yep.
when I read that, I was going, oh my freaking hell! It's time for me to drop the shovel and
Yep.
start looking at life in a different way.
Yes.
With that being said, was there a key moment for you that you just finally went, oh my gosh, that light bulb went off and you said, enough, enough is enough. I am going to do whatever it takes to get my freaking life back. And I'm not going to allow that person who took something from me, my control, and not allow them to do it anymore because that continues to go on. They
Yeah.
continue to take control of your life, right? And I know you
Absolutely.
said you did everything you could to take control of your life back. However,
Yep.
that's not what was working for you. It's when you finally just said, I'm dropping the shovel. I'm freaking done
Yep.
digging. Let's move
Yep.
forward.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And it's such a tough one of with sexual assault. It's so delicate that it's sometimes life coming from you can look as small as just like trusting somebody for an hour to talk about how you're feeling. It doesn't need to be anything major. It doesn't need to be your heading into a complete therapy session where you're going to completely uproot everything. Maybe that is what it is for you, but sometimes it's something small. I think the real shifting point for me, funnily enough, was when I was doing therapy. I was doing EMDR, I was doing the trauma work, and I had been with my therapist for probably a year and a half. And all of my friends and family can tell you I don't trust easy. I'm very particular about who I trust, partially and due to what happened. And I finally felt like I had the trust with this therapist. We start doing the EMDR. And I would say about 4 or 5 sessions in, my therapist stopped us and she said, I am going to choose for both of us that we can't do EMDR right now. For whatever reason, your brain is stopping you at this trauma. And I can tell it is, you are getting more frustrated with yourself that you can't get into whatever this is. You can't resolve this trauma. She was like, I want to empower and encourage you of it's okay to sit in the gray area of this. And it's also okay that maybe this is not solvable right now. Maybe what your brain needs is a little more grace. Maybe what your brain needs is to not deep dive this trauma currently. Trust your brain, trust your body. If you are stopping yourself this aggressively, it might be for a reason. Give yourself a little breather. She's like, post-sexual assault, you've been telling me that you jumped from one therapist to another therapist, and then we've been doing therapy every week. Maybe you just need a little bit of time to be Rachel for a little bit. And something about that in my brain really did shift of this is not fixable. I think for the longest time post-assault, I thought I had this happen. I'm gonna do my to-do list. I'm gonna go get the exam done. I'm gonna tell family and friends. I'm gonna start therapy. I'm gonna work up to the therapist. I'm gonna do EMDR. We'll work through the trauma. Like I'm going through this bullet pointed list, and again, I'm trying to have control over every little part of what happens to choose when this is all going to be done. And when I felt during EMDR that my brain, for whatever reason, was just not going to go there. I could not explain it to you. I could not tell you. My brain is just saying, it's a no-go. We are not doing this right now. When I finally, like you said, when I finally put down the shovel and I said, I think I just need to trust myself. I think I need to trust that when the time is right for me to deep dive and process this, my brain and body will be ready too. And maybe I just need to be me for a little bit. Maybe I just need to pause on therapy for a little bit and explore life and go hang out with friends and not be having this constant. reminder of what occurred and the control I'm trying to have. While I don't think this path is for everybody, I think it really did help me a lot. And in the back of my brain, I definitely still have on the back burner of like, and at some point, I still know that I'm gonna want to go in and I'm gonna want to resolve this with therapy. I'm gonna want to get into it. But I think really taking that pressure off of myself did a huge mind shift for me of you kind of just need to lean into the unknown and the vulnerability and not having control of this, which is so unfortunate when you want it. But it did feel nice to kind of surrender to it and just be like, this is going to come up when it comes up, and I can't control that. And the more I try to, the more miserable I'm making myself.
Yeah. I love how you put it. Life is coming from you. Yeah, not at you.
Yep.
I really like that because I mean, now what I know and what I have learned, I see that to be spot on.
Yeah.
Spot on. That's why I say our lives are perfectly script
Yep.
for us. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
So, I mean, I don't know how far to go into this, but I guess what I'm trying to say is the shame is probably one of the things that really beats you up the most. Was it not?
Absolutely.
Or I mean, not possibly. And of course, losing control of having someone take control of your life, I just can't even imagine that
Yeah.
of having that happen. But however, just the shame of, I don't know, did you get to a point where you're like, you're blaming yourself? This is my fault.
Absolutely. Yeah. I to not get into too much detail, a brief overview would be the individual who sexually assaulted me was somebody, it was a friend of mine. It was a guy I had known since I was probably 13, and I was sexually assaulted by him when I was 21. Um, we had dated for a little bit. We broke up. We continued to be really close friends. So there was a really intense trust between the two of us. I felt very close to this individual. And the night that it occurred, there was also like a touch of drinking involved, more so him than me, but either way. And when it ended up occurring, it felt so angry and so vengeful and violent on his end that the next day when I headed to the hospital to get the exam done, I was in a sheer state of disbelief that it had even occurred. I truly tried to rationalize what was done for what felt like 3 weeks. I could not get my brain to connect that this individual who I had trusted so much and I loved so dearly would do something so heinous and so violent and with nothing but the motive of gaining control and power over me in such a disgusting way that for the months and years afterwards, I had a running narrative in my head of, well, you asked for this to some extent, or I would almost hyper analyze every interaction we had had over the years of, maybe if I had not led him on an XYZ way, or maybe if I had been more straightforward in this conversation, or maybe if I had said this, or this, or maybe if I had not invited him over that night. It's so you pointed at me. What could I have done differently? How did I handle these situations that makes this my fault? Because it is so much easier in our brains to rationalize what I could have done rather than try to understand the major jump of how could somebody I loved so much do this heinous thing? And again, it was just, and I still struggle with it all the time of just not trying to understand it. I am never going to understand why that occurred. I am never going to understand the choices that he made in that moment. I'm allowed to have my feelings about the choices that he made, but the more I try to hyper analyze all of our interactions, the more I find that I'm beating myself up unnecessarily. And I think that shame cycle will just continue and continue because the more you get in the habit of, well, if I had done this, this, or this, then this wouldn't have happened. That bleeds over into the rest of your life. You
Yeah.
are looking at every choice you're making, every interaction you're having, as I'm heading back out into the dating world. It's hard not to feel a little like apprehensive about people. Should I have said this? Should I have said that? Should I be alone with this person? Should I not? It will seep over in such an uncontrollable way, in such a nasty way that the less I try to analyze it, I find works the better for me, shame wise. That's not to say to not have awareness over your feelings of what occurred. That's not to say you are not allowed to feel those things. That's just to say the more you try to put intelligence and logic to what occurred, I feel as though the less you're going to understand from my brain, at least. And I always like to say with sexual assault, I don't think it's a one size fits all. I think however you handle this, you are doing the best with the tools you have, and that's great, and that's all you need to worry about. But if if my experience and the way that my brain rationalizes or understands this again helps one person, I think that's fantastic. So that's kind of my 2 cents on at least how I saw the shame pour over into other facets of my life as well.
Yeah. And you said a lot. So thank you for opening up to that and
Yeah.
sharing that. It reminds me of some of us, well, the majority of us that go through a grief process right
Yes.
after loving somebody and losing
Yep.
them, that's
Yep.
something I personally have been struggling with after losing my ex-wife.
Yeah.
The only thing that really destroyed our marriage was the addiction. I mean, we still
Yep.
cared and loved about each other, even as divorcees, we
Yeah.
still cared about one another. And then you lose them and you
Yep.
start doing that, you start shoulding all over yourself, right? I shouldn't have done that,
Yep.
should have done this differently. And it's taken me some time and I'm so thankful for my training because it has really helped me to where I'm not getting stuck in that
Yep.
mud and staying there to where I'm going, okay, this is just my grieving time, right? This is just my
Yep.
grieving time. And I've learned a lot from this, right? I
Yeah.
finally got some of my answers that I didn't have before and things that's
Yep.
helped me along in my life, which sounds kind of crazy. Sometimes something tragic has to happen to us to get us to a different level of our
Yeah.
life and help us to where we can grow even more, to where doing like what you're doing, where you're helping other individuals and you're sharing your
Yeah.
story. And it sounds crazy, but it really is the truth. If you go back and
Yeah.
if our listeners, you go back and you look at all the nasty things that has happened in your life, whether it's through bad choices or because of somebody else, where it has put you
Yeah.
in your life today. Because again, we have those two choices, right? We can allow it to take control of us
Yeah.
and we live the rest of our life under control of somebody else, whether they're close to us or not, or we've completely got rid of them. They still
Yeah.
have control over us. Or do we go, I want my life back and I'm going to see where life takes me, right? Also, not taking
Yeah.
control of the wheel, just moving in that right direction to
Yeah.
allow life to, how did you put it? Life coming from you,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I think such a big portion of that too is us as humans, especially in today's day and age, we have unparalleled access to so many distractions at any given time. We can avoid that sucker. We can avoid that discomfort like no generation has seen before. We have all the access in the world. And I think one of the biggest pushes for myself as well was learning how to just sit with the feeling of this is really uncomfortable, or this does not feel good, or if I got into a conflict with a partner or a friend or whatever it is, having to sit with the discomfort and the rampant thoughts and feelings that can be self-destructive helps so much in the long term of learning, oh, I felt like for lack of a better term, shit for about an hour last night, and I've just beat myself up mentally. But none of the things I was saying came true. Or maybe they did, but it was okay. And then the next time it happens, maybe I only do it for 45 minutes. And then maybe the next time it happens, I only do it for 30. And it's kind of just that classic CBT of like the more you do it, the less the big dark demon in the closet exists. You know there's nothing behind that door because you've been behind that door and you've sat in that door and you have sat with the demon and talked and got to know the demon. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. It is just convincing yourself to not do distractions instead, which is really, really hard, especially for my generation, where you could just as easily play on your phone and completely veg out for 2.5 hours and not have to think about it, or text 45 people, or go on a dating app and distract yourself, or go on Instagram. I think learning to sit with discomfort is a huge skill that I think we all could utilize more, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yep.
Again, you hit the nail right on the head, Rachel. I mean, seriously, because it's I was having some issues and my coaches called me out on the table, right? They kept me after class. We'll just put it
Yeah.
that way. And after everyone had got off the training call, they asked me how things were going, and I'm like, I'm doing everything I can to keep my chin up in the air and staying positive. And literally my coach goes, "What the fuck are you doing?" And I said,
Right.
"What?" She
Right.
goes, "You are doing everything you can to hold that beach ball under the water."
Uh-huh.
And she
Yep.
goes, "Remember we talked about that in our training?" And I went, "Oh my freaking hell." I says, "I just talked about this 2 days ago in a show and I'm not even following it."
Yep.
She had
It's
to remind
tough.
me, right? Yeah, it
Yeah.
is tough. She had to remind me it's okay to feel the way I need to feel. She
Yeah.
shared something with me that she had just recently shared with her husband, who is my other coach.
Yeah.
And she goes, "Al, I yelled, I screamed, I punched the freaking mattress. I let it all out." And
Yep.
when we got off that call, I did exactly that. I
Yep.
freaking let out a big scream and I started punching my mattress and I started
Yep.
getting all that frustration and everything out
Yes.
because it is okay. You said it just a little bit ago. It is okay to sit with our emotions because the
Yep.
more we do it, we start refiring healthier neurons.
Hmm.
We start pushing the bad
Yep.
neurons, weakening them. Now, they're always going to be there because our
Yep.
subconscious is there to protect us. And that subconscious has a very quick way, or our ego,
Yep.
to bring it right in front again. However,
Correct.
the more that it happens to us, the more we recognize it and the more we continue, like you said, to sit with the monster behind the door or the demons
Yeah.
behind the door,
Yeah.
we start building our strength back and we
Yep.
start allowing ourselves to have those moments.
Yep.
And something to share really quick. I had a guest on my show 3 years ago. She's out of Colorado and she's a coach.
Yeah.
And she says her 6-year-old daughter taught her a very valuable lesson one day. And she goes, "My daughter is afraid of thunder."
Yeah.
And so one day a storm's coming in and it's thundering and lightning outside. And I look over and my daughter's curled up in the corner and she's got her blanket over her head and she's crying. And she's like, "Come on, what is wrong with you? The thunder's not going to hurt you. You don't need to cry." And she's going on and on. And her daughter pulled the blanket up from off her head and said, "Mommy, allow me to have my sad time," and put the blanket back up over her head. And she goes, "I learned such a quick lesson that
Yep.
she taught me. I was not allowing her to go through her feelings. I was
Yes.
trying to do what society has done to all of us, to where
Yes.
you dare show that you're weak. Don't you dare show this.
Yes.
Don't you dare be this way because you're weak
Yep.
if you are, or it's the fear,
Yep.
the shame, everything's coming
Yep.
at us." So she goes, I don't know how much time goes by. We're out on our porch. We got this really nice porch. We're sitting out there, and in the distance, out in the distance a ways, there's a storm coming, and you can faintly hear the thunder. She goes, I look
Yep.
over at my daughter, and she's just like locked in a storm, and she asked her daughter, she goes, "Would you like to get on mommy's lap and have your sad time?" And
Goodness.
her daughter crawled up on her lap and just hugged her really tight. So she gave her daughter permission to
Yep,
go through whatever feelings that she was having. And she goes, here I
absolutely.
am, a coach, and I'm trying to push something onto my daughter that society has pushed on us all our lives.
Yep,
And so she goes, from that day forward, I realized it's okay to have our feelings because that's what God has given us all these emotions for. It's like
yeah,
seasons, all the four seasons, you know. It's
yeah,
we have to have this to help us change, to help us grow, to help our
yep.
strength.
Yes, I love that story. I think kids are so cute and wise. I love working with kids. I worked at primary children's for a long time, and I just will rave about how much I love working with kids. I think they're hilarious and they say the damnedest little things, but sometimes you walk away and you're like, God, you're really wise for a 6-year-old. It's a little frightening. It really makes you connect with your inner child more than you think you would. But
Yes.
I could not agree more. I think we all tend to steer away from the uncomfortable, and sometimes leaning into it actually does more for you and your character. My friend that I mentioned earlier, who's in AA, I all growing up, I never really thought about a value system and what my value system was. And as an adult, I am finding that a major totem of my value system is integrity and accountability, partially and due to my friend, because one of the main tenets of AA and being in that culture is you're going to lay your shit bare. You are going to tell everybody exactly who you are. You are going to tell them your faults. Even if you so much as step on an ant and you do not feel great about it, like you have the space and the table and the time to talk about it, you can lay it there. And it really laid such a foundation for me that I had never had and never realized how much I valued to bring integrity to the table of every interaction that I'm having. And that honestly is how I started to feel like me again. Like that's how I started to feel less shameful and like I not only was Rachel, but I was strong again because that was the tough one is I'm like, well, I feel like me, like I have my hobbies and I have my family and I have my dog, but I was worried I was never going to feel strong again. Like I was never going to feel like I had my footing and I could take on the world. And the minute I started to acknowledge my own faults, I started to find the strength again of I am not a victim. I am who I am. I have had the experiences that I've had. And sometimes I still fuck up. Sometimes I do things where I walk away and I go, God, Rachel, you definitely could have made a better choice in that situation. Or sometimes I make a choice in a situation where I walk away and I go, that didn't feel great. That didn't feel great for the other person, but at least I know I was honest. At least I know I made this choice with integrity, with my best intent and heart. And that's where I started to feel strength again, really. And I just could not encourage that enough to anybody, especially people who have been assaulted. I think finding your footing again is really hard, and it is not going to be a one size fits all. It is not going to be easy little baby steps or whatever it is. Sometimes you are going to have to make large steps that do not feel comfortable. Sometimes maybe it is a baby step. And I think that's what's so interesting and kind of beautiful about life after sexual assault is you get to find out so much about yourself and the way that you are as a unique human and the way that your brain processes things and what works for you and what does not work for you for better or worse, then it's an experience that's one of the worst things, in my opinion, a person can have. But I think it really, you can harness it in a way that it can add value to the story of your life in everything you chose to do after.
Yeah, yeah, because right, it's your own individual journey.
Yep.
You know, I remember saying probably about 6 months in after starting this show, I had a studio at the time and a producer, and I said, I don't know how much longer this show's going to go. And he's like, why are you saying that? And I says, because it seems like every guest that comes on has the same story.
Yep.
You know, because most every single guest that I had at the time was all about drugs and alcohol. I
Yep.
hadn't really reached out yet and started bringing people on that talk about trauma or mental health or fitness and
Yeah.
that. And and he goes, no, just keep doing it. It'll be good. And it took some time. And all of a sudden that light bulb went off. And I went, oh my gosh, the stories might be same, but every single person has a different journey. What
Yep.
caused them to drop the shovel? You know?
Yep.
I mean, I've only had, I think, two or three guests in 4 years where they just said they went to no recovery, no therapist, no nothing. They just said, I'm done. I'm moving on with my life. And they did it. It worked for them. That doesn't work for the
Yep.
majority of us,
Yep.
So again, it's our journey and looking at it in a way which is so hard to do, but as long as we continue to go that direction and not look behind us, is being excited to see where that journey is going to take you.
Yep.
Because I know it has been, at least for me, and I'm not saying every day's like that, because I have my days where I'm down, especially
Yep.
after losing my leg, right? I'm down and I just feel like I'm not able to do the things I want to do right now, and it's frustrating. However, also I've said at the very beginning of this, I'm excited to see where this new journey goes. And you said at the beginning of the show about the chapters of our lives, right?
Yeah.
I get to write a whole new freaking chapter,
Yep.
chapter 1000 and whatever it may be. I
Yep.
don't get to pick the characters, but I get to pick what I see in my life and the direction it gets to go. And I'll make
Yep.
some bad turns. I definitely
Yep.
will. We all do.
Got
It's
to
all,
make the story interesting.
we got to make the story interesting, right? It's like a mystery. We got to have that mystery in it a little bit. We
Yep.
mix it up. However, to be excited to see where that's going to go. Now, whether it's going to be easy, oh hell no. Anytime we want to change our life or or reprogram our brain from a different way of thinking, it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. Like addiction, I'm sure your friend can even talk about addiction. Most of the people that I know, they're like, I wasn't, I didn't think I'd ever be an addict, right? It was just something that I
Right.
did. Before I knew it, I woke up one day and went, holy shit, it's got a grasp on me and I don't know how the hell to get out of it. It's that
Yep.
same way on the journey of getting out of it, whether
Yep.
it's sexual assault, addiction, gambling, whatever it may
Yep.
be.
Yep.
It takes that time, those steps. And as long as we stay focused and not get frustrated with ourselves or be so quick to throw in the towel,
Yep.
we will get to where we are meant to go. And it may not take a year, it may not take 2 years, it could take 5 years.
Yep.
Some people can do it in a month, some people cannot.
Yep.
It's our journey. And it doesn't matter what anybody else says, the outside noise, don't listen to it. It's our journey. Keep moving forward, and you'll get to where you want to get to.
I could not agree more. I put it on a t-shirt. Could not agree more. I think I remember being fresh out of that situation, and I remember seeing Instagram posts or reading books or whatever it was where people were maybe at a stage where like I'm at currently. And I remember thinking, this is horseshit. I will never get to this point. This is light years away from where I am. And I don't think this is ever going to subside. And I think the thing that has stuck out the most in my brain after this is years and years after the sexual assault is the day of the assault when I went to get the exam done. My dad came with me. He was just the sweetest in the whole world. And he had called his sister and told her what had happened. And my aunt texted me. It was very simple. It was very concise. My aunt is a lovely woman who has seen so much tragedy in her life. She's had multiple members of our family commit suicide. They've dealt with substance use. And the pearl of wisdom she gave me that day was, this too shall pass. And it has just imprinted in my brain like nothing I've ever had imprint before, where no matter what situation I'm facing, large or small, no matter what discomfort, no matter what good thing is happening, sometimes I'm having a great day and I'm like, this too is going to pass and I'm going to have really tough days. That's been my driver, and that's been what has pushed me through so much is that simple little phrase. And if I could impart any wisdom on somebody who was assaulted yesterday or somebody who was assaulted 10 years ago is sit with the discomfort because this too is going to pass.
Yeah. And thank you, Rachel, for sharing it on both ways.
Yeah.
Because it is
Yeah,
both ways.
it is. It really is.
Yeah, it really is. And that term is usually used for things that are bad.
Yep.
But again, everything is yin and yang. It works
Yep.
the
The
exact
balance.
same way for the others. How many times have you heard of somebody that ended up becoming a millionaire or became very popular and then they lost everything? You know,
Yep.
so it goes to show, but yet they've learned how to get it back again.
Yep.
We do. We all have that capability of getting our life back, no matter what tragedy has happened to us. Now,
Yeah.
some it has hurt us mentally,
Yeah.
has
Yeah.
caused some really strong damage, or even an accident, right? An accident that a head injury that could put us in a whole different way of thought and thinking and not understanding logic in different ways. And those are definitely things that are really tough cases.
Yeah.
However, we do have the capability. And I'd like to add, it doesn't matter where you are at as far as age. It doesn't matter whether
Yes.
you're 13, you're 23, you're in your 40s, you're in your 60s. I mean, it took me till I was in my 50s to start freaking realizing and understanding. And
Right.
and life started changing for me at age 45, and it's taken me all the way into my 60s before I've really started gaining a lot of knowledge. Doesn't matter if you're 70, 80, we all
Yeah.
have that capability to
Yeah.
move in a different direction.
Yep. I completely agree. And I think you never know where somebody's starting point is. If we end up at the same goalpost, that's great, but you never know what somebody's journey has been. If our goalpost was the 15-yard line and I started from the 10-yard line and you started from yard line one and we both got there, it's still incredible either way, but it's so important to acknowledge within yourself because you're the only one that's going to know what you've been through to always be proud of the steps that you're taking, no matter how big or small. And when you listen to podcasts like this, or you read books or whatever it is, sometimes you're going to hear stories of big, great feats where they have accomplished everything and they've gone from something or to nothing or vice versa. And sometimes what progress looks like is little baby, teeny tiny steps throughout the day that get you to a place that is comfortable, where you feel great with your life and you're not going to be on ABC News or KSL or NBC, but you feel proud of yourself and you can look in the mirror at the end of the day and feel good about who you are and the choices you've made. And I think that is so important and so valid to not benchmark yourself based off of others, but benchmark yourself with yourself of I have pushed through something really difficult and even if it was tiny, I made a difference today and I feel good about that.
I love that. What definitely well said. I heard someone say something 2 days ago on a video that said, if you're looking at changing your life or being successful, the quickest way of getting there is to slow your ass down.
Yes.
Instead of
Yes.
going full board, I'm gonna
Yes.
I'm gonna hit the wall running as hard as I can, and I'll run into it 15 times, and I'm sure I'll make a chip at it. It's like,
Yep.
take your time, don't rush yourself, allow
Yeah.
the life to happen, and
Yeah.
it will get you to where you want to go. Having those patience, you have to have that patience. You have to have patience to
Yeah.
really get you to where you need to be, because again, it's a growing process. We're starting out at
Absolutely.
the beginning. You know, um,
Absolutely.
a buddy of mine, we get in some serious conversations sometimes, and he said something to me a couple of weeks ago. He goes, somebody said I've changed a lot, and he was a drug runner. He's been shot a couple times, ran amok in
Oh, wow.
Ogden, um, um, ran with some pretty bad gangs in prison and different things like that. And you see who the guy is today. He's just an amazing person, a gentleman, you know. And he goes, I change every day. I'm not the same person I was a half hour ago.
Right.
And I thought, I really love how he put that
It's
because
true.
we're continuously growing, right? If we choose to go that direction, we are
Yeah.
continuously changing. And so I'm not the same person I was a week ago.
Yeah.
I'm a totally different person because of what somebody has said, a guest who's been on the show. It's got me thinking in a different way. And I'm starting to go, okay, I want to implement that in my life. So now I'm going
Yeah.
into a different part of growth. And, it's like what makes a tree strong? A tree gets to where it can handle freaking, especially here in Utah, some of the winds we had, last week or a few days ago of 50, 60 mile an hour winds, but yet you still see trees that are standing, and it's the ones with the deep roots. And we have to have
Yeah.
these roots go off in all different types of direction. And if we
Yes.
look at that's how our growth is. We are learning all this stuff, and our growth is happening and it's coming to us from people and different things that's happened to our life. And the more we allow it to come in and use it in the right way, our roots are growing further out. They're growing deeper to where it's
Yep.
a lot harder now to blow us over, to where before we're like a sheep when a wolf's chasing. It's like, okay, you got me. I give up. Eat me. Right? I'm
Yeah.
done.
Yep. No,
And
I completely agree. Yeah, that's so 100% true. And I could not agree more. I think the more you do to ground yourself, whether it be with friends and family, hobbies, yourself, being kind with yourself, the better you're building resiliency up to face tougher tasks in the future. And I I love what you were saying about oh, I could run into the wall 15 times, or I could just slow down, collect myself, figure out how I'm going to approach it. Because sometimes, whether it be addiction or assault or whatever it is, if you run into that wall 4 times, maybe the fifth time is going to be the one that breaks you because you have not prepped yourself and you're not ready to do these things and you're running unnecessarily and you're going to hit the wall and you're going to crash out. You're going to lead yourself into bigger problems than you already have. So I I love the thought and the mindset of approaching things with slowness and kindness, not only for others, but for yourself. Be kind with yourself. Be gentle with yourself, especially with assault. I think it's so easy to be tough on yourself and feel like you should be somewhere at this point. I should feel better than this by now, or I should be over this by now. And just really slowing down, giving yourself the grace and letting yourself build those roots so you can be stronger in the future and handle anything that comes.
yeah, I was going to say here we approach the hour, which it goes by so freaking fast. Because I'm enjoying our conversation and
Yeah,
I'm
me too.
enjoying where things are at. I could go another hour easy. I was going to say, hey, would you like to share some wisdom like what your aunt shared with you? However, what you just said was full of it. I mean, seriously, it was like, my gosh, unless you have something you want to add to that.
I really think the biggest thing I could ever impart upon anyone who has been assaulted is definitely number one, this too shall pass. I think that really changed my mindset for better or worse. Time will do its thing, and you're going to feel better some days and feel worse some days, but no matter what, nothing is permanent. I think that was the biggest mindset shift for me. But the much tougher one that I encourage anyone to do is a vulnerability. Being vulnerable with yourself, being vulnerable with those you love, really will make huge strides in your life in this area specifically. I tried it the other way. I tried to bottle it all in, be super tough, be super strong, and it ate me alive from the inside out. The minute I started to be vulnerable and open myself up to rejection, open myself up to hurt, open myself up to the possibility that maybe I'm going to let something or someone in and it's not going to go my way. When I when I started to believe in vulnerability, I felt like myself more again, and I felt like I could take on more and I could touch that integrity and I could find that strength again. But it all started with being weak, with being the sad version. I need to have my sad time. I need to just be the most raw version of myself to get to that strong version of myself. So if I could impart any wisdom, it's be gentle and be weak. It's okay to be weak. We're human. Sometimes that happens. And I think it just does more for us in the future to make us so much stronger and it makes those highs much higher.
Absolutely. Well said, Rachel. And I said this in my talk last year at the Healing Utah Success Summit, and they caught it on film and used it in our little advertising clip. And I said the day I became vulnerable is the day my life changed.
Yes, 110%. Yep.
And
Get it
it
tattooed on my forehead. I completely agree. I think that that's like the motto of all life. It feels horrifically uncomfortable at times. I want to validate anybody
yeah.
that's trying to do it. It's so uncomfortable, but I empower you, sit through the discomfort. It's something where you will notice change quickly. And if you're looking for change quickly, that's a great step to make.
And thank you for saying that because, yeah, that is one that does happen in a blink of an eye. At least it did for
Correct.
me. And
Me
you
too.
just validated it for you. And I've heard other people say that too, because it's like we cut that carrot that's dangling over our head, right?
Correct.
We cut it. We gave our own strength up or our own issues up to where nobody can ever hang that over our freaking heads again
Yep.
because you said it early in the show, we're one of the worst to do that, right? It's like I got 15 carrots hanging over my head and I got to do everything I can to make sure no one knows about these carrots,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
And the carrots, some
Correct.
of them seem to grow bigger and bigger where it's harder to
Uh-huh.
hide. But once we allow that to happen, psh, everything else is really a piece. It's a piece of cake, even though it takes a little while to eat that cake, right? It
Yeah,
takes
no, it's so
time.
true. And honestly, more often than not, you're going to cut the carrot, show someone the carrot, and they're going to be like, "Oh, I have 15 of these myself. Would you like to see them?" Like you start to find more camaraderie than you would think in just being who you are. Just be unapologetically you, but again, it's so much easier said than done. So even baby steps are so incredible. Be so kind with yourself and do the best with the tools you have. I think if the tools you have are allowing you to make it through day by day right now, you should still feel very proud of yourself because some people aren't here to do that because they didn't have the tools. So I just want everybody to be kind to themselves. Maybe that's my wisdom. Just be nice to yourself if you can.
I love it. I love it. Well put. Rachel, again, thank you so much for your time. And this has just been an amazing show. Again, I could go on another hour with you just talking
Me too.
about
I'm a
stuff.
huge talker, so me
Yeah,
as well.
especially on subjects that we both really care about, and thank you for doing what you're doing. You have taken something bad that's happened in your life and now you are stepping forward and you're helping other individuals and you're opening up. And that says a lot about you and your integrity, that we talked about earlier, because I'm with you on that 100% too. When we can have our integrity and accountability, that's another thing that changes our life. And yes, that one takes time. It's not as quick as being vulnerable. However, it is something that definitely changes our lives for the better. And we just I don't know, man, it's just like life opens up to us a little bit more and we see more of the light instead of the darkness.
I completely agree. And thank you for the kind words, my friend. That's very sweet. I feel very similar about you. I really appreciate you having a platform like this, especially you're jumping in and you're telling me all of this hard stuff that's going on in your life right now. And you have just brought such an incredible energy to the show and just an when I meet you, you're just so sweet and kind, and I think you really give your all to being authentically you and being vulnerable, and it definitely shines through. So I love that you have this platform, and I'm so honored that I was able to come on and share a little bit of my story and impart any wisdom that I had.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate you. So, guys, there you have it. What a great show. Anyway, I feel like it was an amazing show. Just want to thank all you guys, especially all our listeners. Thank you so much. You guys are the ones that's keeping this show going. To sit here and say this show's been going over 4 years still blows my mind. I mean, seriously, let's see. Rachel, you're like the 339th show, and it's just freaking amazing. I remember when I hit 100, people were like, "Do you realize the milestone that is to
That's
hit 100?"
crazy.
I'm like, "No, really, it's that big of a deal." Now here I am. quickly approaching 400. And I'm like, my gosh. But anyway, again, thank you to all our listeners, all our guests, guys. Stay tuned. We still got some amazing guests that are coming and that are going to be on. And I mean, we've got some really good shows ahead. So, and again, if you guys know somebody who'd be interested, have them please reach out to me. I'd love to talk to them about coming on the show, and we'll see where things go. So, guys, remember this. We say this at the end of every show. Addiction is giving up everything for one thing, and recovery is giving up one thing for everything. We're out.